Hi everyone, welcome to the Beltane Bash, Day 2. I'm Marissa Lovett, and I'm going to be talking about creative and collective dreaming today. So I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes to show up if they're going to watch live. And I want to first of all thank Susie so much. Thank you for this opportunity. And I'm really excited to meet all of you, whether you're watching live or whether you're going to watch the replay. Hey Susie, how you doing? So while I'm waiting, just to give everyone a few minutes if someone wants to watch live, I just wanted to basically just do a little tiny bit of housekeeping. I'm probably going to be looking down. I have some notes. And also, I have been fighting a head cold. I'm getting better, but I may, if I sniffle a little bit or blow my nose, you'll know why. Hey, Kirsten, how you doing? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So if you're in a place where you can close your eyes, just take a deep breath and close your eyes. And I'm just going to ask for some help. So, welcome to Creative and Collective Dreaming. I'm Marissa. I am a shamanic practitioner. I specialize in shamanic dream work. I've been doing this work for about 20 years, but I've been coaching people for about 3 years. With my sister, Kirsten, we both run a group called Animistic Earth Medicine, which is a community of shamanic dreamers, earth healers, and people who care about things like sacred tobacco and other earth-honoring traditions. And I also, with my sister, run a Patreon called Shamanic Earth Medicine, which I'll talk about later in the session. So, let's get started. So why talk about creative and collective dreaming at this time of year? Well, Beltane, with its symbolism of masculine and feminine, like the beautiful, the maypole dancing and so many of the other symbols of masculine and feminine, is a time of coming together to create something. So it really lends itself to dream work because in the dream, what you're doing, especially if you do something called dream incubation, which I will talk about in a minute, is that you're asking for a vision. You're deliberately putting out the intent, I want to learn about something in my dream. And the idea is that once you learn about it, then you're guided to take action. So there's a unity there between receiving the vision of the dream and then taking the action on it afterwards. So, and you can see that the idea of masculine and feminine balance in the maypole would also show up in this idea of asking for a dream and then acting on it. And this is a really important part of dream work in many traditional cultures. Dreams are meant to be talked about, acted on, not so much understood in the way we think about them from a psychological point of view in the West. So the first thing I want to talk about is calling a special dream to you. This is an idea that's really important because it's considered to be an essential part of shamanic dream work. Now in shamanic dream work, you do become conscious in the dream. It's like lucid dreaming, and you also accompanying helping spirits as in all shamanic work. But I just want you to understand that this talk that I'm doing today is not just for shamanic practitioners. It's for anyone who dreams. So whether you're a lucid dreamer, a shamanic dreamer, or whether you're not lucid, you just fall asleep and dream every night, this talk is for you, hopefully. So a big part of becoming lucid is something called dream incubation, which is asking for a special dream. And pretty much there's different ways of doing this. Dream incubation is the first step in having lucid dream goals, or shamanic dreaming. So it applies to any dreamer. And basically what you're doing is you're just saying, I would like to dream about X. So while you can do that in different ways, there are physical practices. I like to work with a crystal to do this. I have a special dream crystal, and I did a training last year on that. One of the easiest and simplest ways is to work with pen and paper. So what you do before sleeping is you say, I would like to dream about whatever, and you write that down on a piece of paper. You put the piece of paper underneath your pillow. And this is basically as a way of making your intention to go into the dream world. It's a way of announcing to the universe that you would like to call for a special dream. And then you just try to remember anything that you can about the dream, how you were feeling, images. It doesn't matter if you can't remember the whole dream. You may remember a snippet of something you hear. The important thing is just to honor the dream by writing it down in some way, even if you can only remember what you felt like when you woke up the next morning. If you keep doing this, you will send a message to your helping spirits, your guides, however you think of that you really are interested in cultivating and calling for dreams. And it's the first step in creative dreaming. So let me see here. Blessed be. Hi, Heather. How you doing? Hey, Mariah. How are you? So I want to talk a little bit about creating art, music, or writing with dream work. So everyone remembers a dream that they've had, whether you consider yourself to be an artist or not, where you heard this most beautiful music, or you saw a completed book that you'd written, or you were making beautiful paintings. This is very common that people will have, or it could be like if you're a craftsperson, you saw a completed scarf or a completed piece of wood that you were working with. It's very natural and normal for people to receive these types of visions in their dreams. And it's actually well known among artists that dreaming is an important part of creative inspiration and problem solving. And in fact, if you've ever heard of the South African band Ladysmith Black Mambazo, the leader of that band, named Joseph Shambalala, received in a dream the sound for how that band was going to sound. And he created the band around what he heard in that dream. So the important thing when you have one of these dreams is that you want to record it. And if you don't know another way, a dream journal is a perfectly fine and respected and tested way of doing it. But you also want a way to harvest the information from the dream. And some people call this dream reentry. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. I work with a crystal. And so what I do is I blow the dream into the crystal, and then I hold the crystal between my hands in a meditative state. And the energy in the crystal leads me back into the dream. You can also do a shamanic journey, or if you like to vision, if you're a person who visions come to you, you can go back into the dream that way. But you can also do this by speaking to other people about it. Another person listening to your dream can coax out details that on your own you would never come up with. And just sometimes getting another person involved helps you to see your dream in a different light and can get you to the action that needs to be taken to make your dream more of a reality. Now, obviously, this is with a dream that you want to come true and a creative dream. But you can see, even within an individual dream, collectively sharing it with other people is a really important part of the process. And in Beltane, as I'm going to talk about later, this is the time of year when, in Northern Europe at least, our ancestors were very preoccupied with growing food. And that was something that was not an individual action. It was done collectively. So it's really normal that this time of year we would be thinking about getting together and working together. And this can apply to dream work as well. Now the next thing is, once you have your vision, you're going to hit a few roadblocks to manifesting it. Even if you're a very talented artist or very talented musician, the creative process is filled with obstacles, as we all know. So one of the things I like to track within my dreams is something called masculine-feminine imbalance. And as you know, Beltane is filled with symbols of men and women coming together for creativity and fertility. So what I like to do is I like to go within the dream, and I like to just kind of track my dreams in my dream journal over time when I'm creating something. And I just want to pay attention to how men and women characters in my dream are treating each other. Are they respectful of each other? Are they getting along? Is one grabbing more attention than the other? Sometimes this can help me see if I'm having an imbalance. An example of masculine imbalance is the masculine, the part of you that thinks and plans and takes action, is telling your intuition or your feelings to be quiet. Another part can be the feminine being out of balance. This is where the part of you that feels, or the part that is your has your inspiration, is so overpowering or wants so many different things that your masculine can't figure out which thing to take action on first. And this is more of a problem than people can realize. It's one of the reasons why people have a hard time getting started sometimes with their projects. So let me just take a breath here and see if anyone has a question. Hi, Tanya. How are you? See Mariah. Good morning. So if you do have a question, by the way, and I just don't happen to see it, please feel free to leave it in the comments. I'll be checking the comments throughout the time of the Beltane Bash, and I'm happy to answer questions. So the other thing I do is with a powerful dream, you're gonna, like a one that's really inspirational, you're probably going to notice that there's going to be very good masculine-feminine balance. But afterwards, when you start to take action on it, that's when you start to kind of see these other dreams that will kind of let you know where you are in the process. And for myself, I often flip back and forth. Masculine will be too dominant, feminine will be too dominant. It's very common for me. And I've seen it with other people as well. Hi, Jazzy. How you doing? Oh, I'm glad you like that example. The other thing is that you want to also you want to make sure that before, around the time of each of the sabbats, if you practice any pagan tradition, or if you track not just the solstices and equinoxes, but the cross-quarter days, like May Day that we're coming up on, you want to make sure that if you have a powerful dream around that time, that you blow that dream into one of the medicine objects on your altar, or if you have a bundle. Because this is going to help you manifest that dream as you go through that segment of the Wheel of the Year. So it's a little bit of a magical, energetic way of bringing your dreams into reality before you even decide to take action on them by making a choice in the physical world. Now, there's another way of working with this, and that's also working as a writer. You can work with dreams for inspiration, for plots, for stories, if you're stuck. I work with someone who is a writer. He's writing a story, and he's actually gotten entire sections of the plot of his story by just taking them out of parts of dreams out of his dream journal. So this is a really common way of working with dreams, is to make them into stories if you're a creative writer. So let me see. My dogs are talking to you. They heard you say my name. That's fantastic. Beltane is a great time for dream work. The veil is as thin as it is during Samhain. Yeah. And it's really interesting why that is, or at least to our ancestors. So the other thing is that if you are a lucid dreamer, it's not uncommon for people in lucid dreaming states to solve problems, creative problems within the dream. It does involve being conscious that you're dreaming. So that's why, it's something that has to do with lucid dreaming. But just like you can work on your shadow in lucid dreaming, you can also solve a creative problem with a project that you're working on this way. So one of the other things that people have an obstacle about when you're working on a project is sometimes you have a block and you get behind in your work. And people have a lot of guilt over this. They feel like they're sort of letting themselves down, or they're letting their creative work down, and then it becomes even harder. So one of the neat things that you can do within the dream, or you can do it in a dream reentry, is to dialogue with your creative project. And this is done in many traditional cultures. That creative project is, within the dream, is a being that you can talk to. And you can go in a trance state, however you re-enter your dreams, and you can talk to it and ask it, what do I need to do, or what do you need for me to complete you? Or just say, I haven't forgotten about you. I've had some things come up in my life, but I'm going to get back to working with you again. And you would be surprised how this is a very traditional way of working. And what it is it creates an energetic line between you and the future, between the positive future that you're trying to create. And it allows your creative project in the future to talk to you back in the present about how to go about dialoguing with it and working with it. It can be a really helpful way to getting through a creative block, particularly if you've gotten stalled. I bring this up this time of year because we're in the yang part of the year. And during the yang part of the year, people feel really bad if they're not taking action all the time. So I have personally found this one to be helpful. So let me just see if there's a question or a comment right now. Okay. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about something called collective dreaming. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that it's very traditional. In fact, medicine people do this all the time. It's very traditional in shamanic cultures, animistic cultures, for people to meet in the dream world. They will agree ahead of time to have the same dream, to meet at a certain place for a certain activity. The most common way this is done is to medicine people or shamans will do this to work out how to do a ceremony if they're not sure how to do that. But it's done in other areas as well. And this is called collective dreaming, because the dream world is a place. And just like I can meet and talk to you here on this group, two people who trust one another can meet together in the dream time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why trust and boundaries are important. In the dream world, you're there in your multidimensional aspect. And so it's important that if you're going to meet with somebody, that you do it consciously and that you choose someone that you like and respect and trust. Because, it has an energetic, it brings in some energy into your field to do this. If, for example, you're worried about meeting people that you don't want to meet, there's a teacher named Puma Quispe, who's a Peruvian teacher, who talks about, in the Andean traditions, visualizing a bright sun over the navel area. And this helps to keep unwanted people out of your dream. But let's say you want to meet someone in your dream. One of the really wonderful things you can do at Beltane, because it's a time about human fertility, is that you can have a romantic dream with someone at Beltane. You can meet, people have sex in dreams all the time. It's really fun. And the other thing it does is it really helps you to bond with the person on a spiritual level. It doesn't have to be your life partner, but it just has to be someone that you would want your energy to mix with, you know. And it's a really wonderful and beautiful experience. And what's interesting is that you may not, when you're with a person in a dream and when you both wake up and you share your experiences, there's going to be images that you'll have in common, and then there's going to be things that you won't have in common. And that's kind of interesting to see, like, where the differences are as well. Thank you for mentioning dialoguing with one's creative projects. Very helpful. Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that's helpful. So yes, romantic dreaming, very important, just as fun as other types of romantic activities during belting. But also on an individual level, and this can be done also collectively, belting is a time when it's really important to know if you're on track or not. And one of the partners that we all have as dreamers are our ancestors and the descendants, the people in the future who haven't been born yet. You can do this with both visioning, or you can do it in the dream. But dreams about the ancestors often, especially ancestral guides, I'm really talking about ancestral guides right now, they can help you to keep you on track if you're kind of wavering, if you're having a lack of confidence, if you don't believe in yourself, if you're hitting a lot of snags. The ancestors can really help you with that because they want you to manifest your life purpose. And on the flip side, dreams about the descendants are valuable because they can help you realize that how much of what you're doing is helping to create the world that they need us to create so that they can live their purpose. So it's like you as the dreamer are sort of the intersection between the world of the ancestors and the future, the world of the descendants. And this is a very powerful and important thing to do, especially at this time of year, like Susie was saying, because the veils are thin. And this is a time of creativity. So let me just see where I'm at right now. And then I think I'm going to, right now, I'm just going to do, before I get into the last part of my talk, if you're in a place right now where you can close your eyes for a few minutes, I just want to do a very short demonstration of what it's like to dialogue or re-enter a creative dream. So I just want you, if you're in a place where you can do this, if you're not driving a car or if you're sitting down somewhere, to close your eyes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rattle for a few minutes and just whistle a little bit. I want you to remember an image, a creative, or something like a dream where something you wanted to come true, where you had that dream and it hasn't come true yet. And just hold that image in your mind while I rattle and whistle. Okay, so when you're ready, just rub your hands together. That's what I like to do to kind of remind my body that I'm ready to come back. And then just place your hands either over your heart or you can place them over your legs, just as a way of saying, I'm back, all of me is back, I'm back in my body. So if any of you were successful in kind of maintaining or connecting with your dream image, I'd love to hear about it. Please feel free to mention that in the comments. And if you weren't successful, if it was a problem, please feel free to mention that also. So now I'm going to talk about something that is a little different. Basically, I'm going to talk about dreaming with the spirits of the land. Beltane was a huge moment in the agricultural calendar of Northern European people, especially people in the UK. It was actually a really tricky time because it was the time when the people were beginning to do the serious, real work to create the harvest that would feed everybody for the next year. And there was a lot of anxiety about whether or not it would, be successful. So in the Iron Age, while people did all the things that we still do, the fertility rites and all the fertility symbols, there were also human sacrifices as a way to give back to the spirits of the land. And this has continued not as human sacrifices, but as rituals where people will be chosen randomly to jump through the Beltane fire as a way of sort of risking their safety as a sort of human sacrifice to the spirits. And I'm bringing this up because I want to show how important it was to these Northern European people to be so in touch with the land and so understanding that they couldn't have a successful harvest without the ancestors and the land on their side. So I'm going to talk a little bit about connecting with the ancestors and the spirits of the land, and also how that can help you with your individual projects for the year. So basically, at some point, when you're really in the zone with something that you're trying to create, you begin to feel like something larger than yourself is happening. You're tapping into either the collective dream of humanity or even the dream of the earth, the dream that the earth wants for all of us, of harmony and of a positive world. And so this is a really exciting moment and one that is worth trying to cultivate. And so one way to do this is to understand that no matter where we live, whether we live on the same land that our ancestors lived on, or whether we live in a very different place from where our ancestors lived, there are ancestors of this land who live here now. And those people, if you go back far enough, believed, at least some of them, that it was their duty to come back and to inhabit areas of nature. Some of these areas are sacred sites. Some of them come back as rain. Some of them come back as bodies of water. But they were like a type of ancestral guide that's connected to the actual land itself and to the health of the land. And they're helpful energies. But they enjoy for us to dialogue with them. And one of the ways that they dialogue with us is through dreams. And sometimes they will tell us what they want from us to help them stay in balance. And other times they help us to stay in balance. So it's a relationship. And in that sense, even if you're dreaming by yourself, it's a very collective way of working. So one of the areas that this is probably the most important is basically learning from the ancestors of the land. And let me just take a break here and see if I can answer a question. Thank you for mentioning dialogue with one's creative... My ancestors are always with me, and my grandmothers, when they died, became very active in my life. That's beautiful. Yeah, some people, it happens very quickly. Like the loved one will die and almost immediately they become a type of guide. And other times it takes time. But the ancestors, I think, are so powerful and helpful and important. That's really beautiful that you have that. So this is learning from the ancestors of the land. And I'm going to read a little quote from Robert Moss, the dream teacher. Our dreams may open the way for cultural soul recovery and the healing of the relations between our kind and the natural world. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what this might look like and how you can actually be part of it. Because it sounds really great, but most of us have to be taught how to do this. Because many of us in Western culture were not taught how to do this. So my shamanic teachers, especially one named Jose Luis Herrera, talked about something called mapping the land. And this is basically the idea that there are different spiritual energies in lakes, in rivers, in mountains, in the ocean, in trees, and that it's our job as humans to understand how to relate to these different places. Even your garden or the tree outside your door is an energy that you're in relationship with. So it's our job to relate with these beings in a healthy way and to understand when things are out of balance, how to either help that ourselves or to seek help, outside help if needed. And part of this is the idea that the actual ancestors, the living human ancestors of the past, are inhabiting some of these places. So I want to talk about incubating a dream or calling for a dream to understand something about the land. So let's say there's either a holy place or a place in the landscape that you want to understand more about. One of the ways you can ask for a dream is to visit this place and leave a small offering. It doesn't have to be something complicated. And it also helps if you do some kind of like physical purification, like spiritual bathing, or some people drink a special tea or just drink hot water with lemon in it, but just some way of basically saying to your body, I'm ready to dream. The other thing you can do is you can take a quartz crystal to a place that you'd like to learn more about and charge the crystal there with the energy of that place, and then take the crystal home and sleep with it close to you. And the energy of the place will be sort of for a short time in that crystal and will communicate with your energy within the dream. This is a powerful way of doing things if you're more of a feeler rather than a seer or someone who's clairaudient. And the spirits of place definitely appear in your dreams. They also appear in visions or in journeys, depending on how you're wired as a mystic. So I'll give you a little example about how this worked in my life. I did not grow up. I live in Florida now. I didn't grow up here. And so I moved from the temperate zone to the subtropics. It was a huge shock for me. I just had to learn how to live in a completely different way. And so dreams of indigenous ancestors began to come to me at a certain point. And this was connected to my beginning to visit a powerful place in my neighborhood, which was a bayou. And so gradually over time, these ancestors revealed themselves as beings who were connected to this bayou, which I consider to be kind of a power spot. And they began to teach me things about how to understand Florida, that Florida is not just the American civilization or even the Spanish people that were here before it, but it's very ancient. And just because a lot of people look at Florida as something that, people make jokes about, that a 50-year-old building in Florida is a historical site because, a lot of people haven't lived here very long. But Florida is actually quite ancient. And these beings began to teach me something about how to connect with that and how to be comfortable here and how to feel like I was connected to this place so that, that I felt a sense of belonging here. And that kind of help is something that in some ways the ancestors of the land can be some of the best teachers of. And it's also true that you don't have to do this by yourself. There can be, groups of people can decide to have these dreams or journeys. You can organize it, depending on your talents, you can organize it differently. If you're a lucid dreamer, you can just agree that your dream goal is you're going to meet at a certain place in the dream world to understand more about a river or your garden or the tree in your backyard. But not everyone's a lucid dreamer or a shamanic dreamer. So one way you can do it is, let's say you've had a dream about your garden, and you want to understand more about the land that you're gardening on and that you're living on. Then you could go to someone that you trust, and the two of you could agree that you're going to have a dream about the spirit that talked to you through this dream about your garden. You can also do this as a dream reentry if you want to. That's another way of like saying, I would like to know more. And these also, if you offer do a small offering, this can help too. But if you keep doing this, these land spirits will start to talk to you. They'll tell you what they need. They'll tell you if they're in balance or not. They'll tell you if they're out of balance, and they'll even give you some hints about how to help them, even if you need to ask for someone else, like a trained person, to come in and help. And this basically, I do this in regards to a natural spot in my area. It's like a little pond, a natural pond near my home, where I leave offerings every day. And my sister and I both care about this place. It's kind of a special place for us. She's a little bit more of an earth empath than I am. And so basically, if she has the dream about something being out of balance, the two of us will agree to dream about that place. And we don't always meet in the dream, but if you put your dreams together, you can also collectively create an answer that way. So that's another way that more than one person can work together on the same dream about the land. And it's also a really good way for earth empaths to feel more empowered about their gifts. One of the problems that earth empaths have is that they get sick every time something bad happens to the land because they don't have control over their abilities yet. And so one of the ways that you can control your abilities is to partner with another person and either go into the dream again more consciously or to begin to take action on the information that you've received. Either way, this begins to set up a more powerful connection with your helping spirits so that you don't have to feel overwhelmed with grief or with the pain of the land when these upset happens. Because when people do bad things to the land, unfortunately, the negative, unhappy energies do get a little bit more, they get a little more powerful if you don't have adequate protection. So I want to talk a little bit about how this can help you with your individual projects. So just like we can't have a successful harvest without the land, without rain, without adequate sunlight, it also helps so much to have the nature spirits partnering with us with our individual projects. Even projects that have nothing to do with the earth, that just have to do with our own lives and our own success. So we want to talk about two relationships that I formed that had to do with, started with dreaming. The first one is with the tree that's outside my house. This tree became a sort of guide to me. And basically I had a block I was creating a project, a webinar for my Facebook group, and I was stuck. I just didn't know what to do next. And basically this tree started giving me messages and helping me to create this live stream so that I could complete my project. So that relationship is a relationship I began through dreams. So oftentimes these nature spirits will introduce themselves to you through dreams or through visions. It's very common. The other one is sort of an ongoing relationship I have with one of the elements. It's very traditional in many indigenous cultures to see the elements, wind, water, fire, and earth, as beings, as powerful beings, as sometimes as the most powerful ancestors. And ever since I was introduced to the Andean path, I've had a relationship with wind, which is called Wairamama. And it came through my dreaming. And eventually I found a wonderful woman named Renee Baribeau, who wrote a book called, she has a Facebook group called Wind Clan where she teaches people how to work with the wind, and she wrote a book called Winds of Spirit. And one of the things she talks about is a practice from the Shetlands called wind knots, where basically you tie a knot when it's windy, and when you're stuck, you release one of these knots. So this is mine. You can see the knots. And it helps you to become unstuck. Now, this is powerful because there are many times when, I get stuck a lot. And it's a type of basically elemental magic that can help me to go forward. But I think one of the reasons why I resonate with it is because I was introduced to this element through dreaming. I think that is why I connect with it a little better than maybe some other nature spirit. So let me just take a minute and see if I can answer a few questions. I know what you mean about feelings of protective nature for the land. A garden space was uprooted in my area to build houses. Oh, I passed by one day to see a woman crying and asked what was wrong. She told me he was sad because of the land, trees, and flowers being torn down. So sweet, we talked for a while. Oh yeah, that's very, very common. And it's sad because I think if people who were developers understood how energetic these things are, I think that they would be a little bit more careful in and respectful in how they do things. I think that's something that in Western society we lost that other traditions have, this idea that you ask for permission before you take something from the land. So before I finish, I just want to first of all thank every one of you for watching live and also for your great energy. I want to thank anyone who's going to watch the replay. If I haven't seen your question or comment, I will definitely answer later on. And I definitely want to, once again, thank Susie so much for putting this together. She was so awesome and so helpful. And I'm very much looking forward to Lisa's live stream later on today. So I just want to let you know some ways that you can continue with this work if any of these ideas were helpful to you. If you've enjoyed this, I'm going to be offering a free gift, a link, which I will put into the comments after the live stream is finished. This is basically it's basically a free gift to a PDF that I've made, which covers pretty much everything I discussed in the talk, with a little bit more information. And it also will include the video replay of this talk. But I'm also inviting you in that PDF to join my sisters and our free group called Animistic Earth Medicine. This is a group where a couple times a year we do live streams, my sister and I. We do stuff about shamanic dream work, tobacco, sacred tobacco. Hold on for a minute. Excuse me. Sacred tobacco. We talk about indigenous animistic traditions from all over the world. And we have a really wonderful community of people who are just lovely and who have contributed so much. And we'd love to have you there. The only thing I just want to suggest is if you do decide to join us, please answer both challenge questions so that we know you're a human being. The other thing I wanted to also mention is that if you have these talents, like you're an earth empath, or you have a strong ability to dream, or you have ancestors coming to you all the time, or you're interested in these indigenous traditions, sometimes it really can help if you have a little bit of coaching or a little bit of a community where you can go into these ideas in a little bit more deep and deliberate way. So I'm offering two ways to do this. One is I'm going to be having a little contest, and the winner will win a half-hour complimentary session with me, a Zoom session, which will just give you a little bit of the taste of the kind of work I do in person, excuse me, with individual one-to-one sessions on Zoom. And that's usually about shamanic dream work or problems that people are having with the spiritual awakening process, or people who just want to learn more about these traditions. The other way that my sister and I try to share what we know is we have a Patreon called Shamanic Earth Medicine. There's also a private Facebook group that goes with that. Not only do people in our private Facebook group receive all of our free gifts first before anyone else does, but we also have special content that's just for Patreon patrons. And so right now, I'm doing a series on Introduction to Shamanic Journeying. We're going to be journeying next to a middle world spirit that will help you get to know a helping land spirit in your area that will help you understand and create more harmony with your area. I'm also doing a sort of very short step-by-step video tutorial about meeting and getting to know a plant spirit. In this particular instance, it's a sort of daisy family species called Bidens pilosa. So if any of this is interesting to you, I hope you'll reach out, and I hope I'll get to meet one of you in a complimentary session when the Beltane Bash winners are announced. So let me see if is there anyone here? This was nice. Thanks, Marissa and Susie Zern. I love dream work. Very nice presentation. Thank you so much. Jazzy is a very talented dreamer. Thank you so much. So, let me see if there's any questions or any comments. Have I been vague or anything? Oh, hey, Pamela. How you doing? And the main thing I just want to make sure that you understand is that while these things may seem unfamiliar, they're very natural. We're hardwired as people to be able to tap into the dream world, to learn from nature, to meet collectively in the dream world, and to create from the dream world. There was so much great information. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Well, I'm going to go ahead now and close and thank my helpers real quickly. So if you're in a place where it's convenient for you to close your eyes, go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and close. Thank you very much. Thank you, Susie. And looking forward to Lisa later on today.